The first form of the quadratic equation I will be demonstrating is vertex form with the formula y equals a times parentheses x minus h squared plus k. The first problem I will be demonstrating is y equals x minus 3 squared. Since we already know that hk is the vertex, there's not a lot of work to do in order to find it. So we know that our vertex is 3, 0. 3 instead of negative 3 because we know that we have to flip the sign for h, and 0 because k is 0. And if it helps just to add the 0 in k's place, go right ahead. Now in order to find the rest of the points for the parabola, we have to plug in the vertex to an xy table, like this. Plug this in. 4, 5. Okay. Now since we know that our pattern for the xy table is a times 1, 3, 5, dot, 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 so on, increasing odd numbers. So since we know that a equals 1, this does not change our pattern very much. So we have 0 plus 1 is 1, and 1 plus 3 is 4. And we just add that in down here as well. And now we can graph our parabola because we already have all of the individual points. So we have 0 here. So our vertex is 3, 1, 2, 3, 0. First point is 1, 4. Second point, 2, 1. Third, 4, 1. Fifth, 5, 4. And that is your parabola. All that's left to do is label the axis of symmetry, which will just go right down the center of the parabola through the vertex. And now you're done. The next vertex form practice problem we'll be doing requires a little bit more work than the first problem because the a is unequal to 1, but not much more work. It's still very simple. So first thing we do is we find the vertex. So hk, it's negative 1, negative 3, negative 1 because remember to flip the sign for the h. Now we plug it into our xy table. And if we can get this drawn, negative 1, negative 3. So we go up and then down. Okay, so I stuck our little pattern up here. So now that we have a 2, it'll be 2 times 1, so 3 plus 2 is negative 1. And then 2 times 3 is 6, so negative 1 plus 6 is 5. And now we just fill this in down here, and we can graph it now that we have all of our points. So our vertex, negative 1, negative 3, 1, 2, 3, goes right here. And our first point is 1, 5, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Second point, 0, negative 1, 0, negative 1. Third, we have vertex. Fourth, negative 2, negative 1, 1, 2, negative 1. And last point, negative 3, 5. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right up here. And we just draw our parabola up. Oops, a little crooked. That's alright. Okay, and that's your parabola. The last thing that we have to do for our parabola is just label the axis of symmetry, which will just go right down the center of the parabola through the vertex. Just like that. Alright, now we are on our last vertex form practice problem, and it is slightly different, I guess, from the other ones, still not that difficult. So as always, we first find our vertex, which is 2, 4. We plug that into our XY table. Table. And there we go. 1, 0, 3, 4. Now before we can find any of our other y points, we have to look again at A, which is -1/4. So we go -1/4 times 1 is -1/4. So we subtract 1/4 from here, which will give us 3 3/4. Now -1/4. -1/4 times 3 is -3/4. So this becomes 3. And we just add this down here. And now we can plug it in. So let's put this one. So first we graph our vertex, which is 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have our first point, 0, 1, 2, 3. Second point, 1, 1, 2, 3, and 3/4. So it's about here, I guess, somewhere. Oh, it's bad. Hold on. Now we have our next point, 3 3/4. 3 3/4. And the last point, 4, 3. Here is our parabola. Notice that is quite different from our other parabolas because of A. Because A is a negative, the parabola is upside down, and because it's 1/4 or less than 1, it's a lot wider than the other ones. So last thing, can't forget, is to label our axis of symmetry down center through the vertex of the parabola. Now we are done. Now that we are done with our vertex form practice problems, it is time to move on to our intercept form practice problems. And as the name indicates, we do not find the vertex first, we find the x-intercepts. So, in order to find these intercepts, we need to focus on P and Q. P and Q are our x-intercepts. And like with the H in vertex form, we have to change the sign of the P and Q because of those negatives. So, our first x-intercept is 0. Just kidding, not 0. It is -1, 0. Our second x-intercept is 3, 0. Now that we have these points, we need to plot them on our graph. So -1 and 3. -1 and 3. And in order to find our vertex for this parabola, we need to find the midpoint between our two x-intercepts. So our midpoint is 1. So let's do a little dot there. And so now that we have our x-coordinate for our vertex, we need to plug it in to this equation to get the y-coordinate. So x, or 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 minus 3 is -2. And you need these two numbers always have to be opposites, and that's how you know you're doing it right. So you can just do a little quick check there. So 2 times -2 is -4. Now we have our vertex. We need to plot it on our graph. So we have 1, -4 down here. All that's left to do is to draw our parabola, making sure it looks like a U instead of a V. Oh, that's kind of U-ish, sort of. And then label our axis of symmetry. And we are done. with the first one. Alright, now on to our second intercept form practice problem. Slightly different from the first, but still pretty much the same. It starts out the same, finding our two x-intercepts, and remember to switch the sign. So our first is 3, 0. Our second is -4, 0. Now that we have our intercepts, we just have to plug them in to our graph. So 3 and -4. 3, -4. Now we must find the midpoint, which is -1/2. So stick that right there. Now that we have the first part of our vertex, we need to plug in our x to our equation in order to find the y. And this is where the 2 comes in. We have to, plug in our x, and we get -3.5, and here we get +3.5, and we have to multiply all of these together, this, and this -2. So we have to multiply all of that together, which is, I'll tell you in just 1 second. Let's see, 24.5, so a -1/2, and 24.5. There you go. So now, that's obviously not going to fit on our grid, but we can pretend. So we have -1/2 and 24, so that's going to be way up here somewhere, something like that, and then just draw a graph like that, our parabola like that. And now we have our parabola. All that's left is the axis of symmetry, which will go right through this vertex there. And we are done. Alright, now on to our last intercept form practice problem. It is not much different from the other two. It's just a little bit harder, I guess, just because the numbers are slightly larger. So it starts out the same, finding our x-intercepts, which is -3, change the sign, and -7. Now that we have our intercepts, we plot them on our graph. So we have 1, 2, 3, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7. Now to find our vertex, we just have to find the midpoint between these two, which is -5. Just do a little dot right there. Now we have the first part of our vertex. We just plug it in to this equation to find the y-coordinate. So -5 plus 3 is -2. -5 plus 7, +2. We're doing alright because these two are opposites. Multiply these times -4 as well. We get 16. Our vertex is -5, 16. Now we just go back to our chart to plot it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's going to go a little bit off the graph. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'll just stick that right there. Draw our parabola, making sure it's a U. Dot in our axis of symmetry. Goes through our vertex there, and you're done.